So finally, we're getting to the part where we can actually send notifications. And we do that using Firebase's new functions. And if you noticed at the beginning, this functions directory was created for us. And it's essentially its own project, has its own package.json, node modules. And what we really need here is this index.js, and that's where we're going to write all our functions. So as you can see here, we have just the functions, but we need to include one more thing, which is the Firebase admin. So I'm just going to add that right there. Admin equals to require Firebase admin, which if you check the package.json, you can see that it's already there. It just wasn't included. And then finally, what we want to do is initialize the application. So under the admin, we call initialize app, and then we pass it the admin options. All we need to know is just call functions.config.firebase. And there we've initialized like Firebase function and Firebase admin. So each function that we want to create, we export it. So what I'm going to do is create exports.send notifications, which is the function that we want to export. And the way we're going to do it is, first of all, we want, like I said before, to check that notifications node to see if something new has been created. And the way we can do that is listen for changes on that particular node. And this is how we do it. We do functions.database.ref. And as you know that we have it on the notifications ref, so we can do notifications. But we don't want to do it on the entire reference. We want to do it on any particular node that's created. So what we can do is just say /notification ID, and that is putting the reference on a particular node, not the entire array. So on that reference, and you can see here, we want to check the on write. So we want to check if there's anything being written to that particular node. And it returns an event. And this is where we're going to do all our logic. So we're just checking for any writes that's happening on that node, and then we can do a bunch of stuff. The first thing we want to do is check to make sure that it's a new notification being created. So we don't want our notification to be sent whenever someone might be editing like a node, or if it's been deleted or anything like that. So we just want to check for a new addition. So what we can do is just write a very simple if statement. So event.data.previous.file. So that's checking to see if the data is being edited, like if it's already created. So we can just return, like we don't want anything to happen. And then we can write another one to see if the data is being deleted. So what we can do is just check to see if it exists, and then check if it doesn't exist, and if not, we can just return. So now we want to get to actually creating the notification that we want to send. So first of all, we need to actually get the data. So let's just take a snapshot. A snapshot of the data that was being written. And then we can actually set up the payload that we want. So this is an object, and it's going to take a parameter which is called notification. And this is where we're going to write like the message, the title, and the icon for that notification. So first of all, we want the title. And what I just wanted to say is new message from, and then the person's username. So let's just go new message from. And now what we want to do is get the username from the notification that was passed. So if we actually go back to our database, we can see that here we have the user's name and it's stored under user. So what we need to do is take the snapshot and then take the value of that snapshot and then pass user. Next thing is that we want the body of the notification. So, and this is basically just, if we go back here, we can see message. So let's just take this and then dot message. And then we want the notification icon. So here. and I believe we stored it as user profile image. So user profile image. And finally, we want to redirect the user to the application if they were to click on the notification. Not that it's actually being saved, so it's not going to do anything, but just to show that we can do it. And to do that, we have click underscore action. And what we want here is the URL for our application. And we can get it similar to how we initialize our application here. We can actually just get that. So first of all, we want to just pass in the protocol and then do that. And then all we need to call is .auth domain on it. So now we have the payload that we want to send. But what I want to do is actually just console log it somewhere so we can check to make sure that everything is fine. So what I'm going to do is console.info payload. And the reason I'm using console.info here is because there's a special log section for Firebase functions, but in my experience, if you just write console.log, it won't show. So you have to use the specific type of log that you want. So I'm using console.info here. Now, if I were to open up my terminal again, and what we want to do, if we go back here, is deploy our application. So similar to how we deployed only hosting before, now we just want to deploy functions. So we don't want to be deploying the entire application every time we change something only to functions. So let's do that. It's fine. Okay, so our functions have now been deployed. Let's go back to our Firebase dashboard here, and you can see that there's a tab for functions. If I were to click on that, hopefully we should see our new function, which is called send notifications. And yeah, you can see it right here, and you can see that it's on this node, notification / the ID of the notification. So if I were to click on it, well, you can't click on it, but if I was to go to logs, so there are no logs yet, obviously, because we haven't really done anything. But let's actually test it out now. So if I go back to my application here and I say, this is a test of the logs, okay, then I send that. If we go back to our functions, it takes a while sometimes for it to come up, but we just have to wait a bit. Okay, so now you can see the log here, and we can see that the function has started. You can ignore this thing about billing because we're not gonna add our details right now. And then we can see the notification that I just logged. So we can see here that we have the title, new message from, it correctly says my name. Oops. Then we have the body here. It says this is a test of the logs or whatever. Then we have the icon that we selected, which is like the profile image. And then click action will take us to the URL for our application. So that looks really great. We've essentially created the notification, and sending it is going to be really easy, as we can see. So to send the notification, first of all, we obviously need to get all the tokens of all the users that have been subscribed. And as you know, that we have our tokens node, which has this information. So similar to how we've been doing it before, we just need to get the array of notification tokens and send to each of those. So what we should do is return admin.database.ref, and this time we're getting tokens. And then we just want to get the value once, which you can do that, .then data. So this is just going to give us the array of all the data. And let's just do a quick if statement to make sure that there's actually value there. Return. So just in case there are no tokens there, we don't want to cause a huge error, so let's just return. So first, let's just take a snapshot of the data. Go to data.file. And then let's just create an empty array of the tokens that we're going to do. So what we're going to do is loop through the snapshot array, which isn't actually an array, it's an object. And then we're going to create an actual proper array of just the token strings, which is what Firebase needs to send to them. So to loop through it, we're just going to do for let key in snapshot, and then we're going to do tokens.push. So snapshot key dot value, or actually it's dot token because the value, we already have the value there. We want the token. So if we go back to our database, you can see that we have token and URD. So this is the snapshot, and then this is token. And sending the notification, all we have to do is pass the array of tokens which we've just generated here, and then also pass the payload that we want to send. So let's go to return admin.messaging this time. Whoops, looks like I made a mistake here, .database. I hope I didn't make a similar mistake anywhere else, but looks like it is working so far. So .send to device. And as you can see, this takes a registration token, either a string or an array of strings, which we have in the tokens here. And then we have payload, so which is the variable that we created up here, so payload. And that is pretty much it to send the notifications. So what we're gonna do is toggle my terminal here, and let's just deploy the functions again, and then we'll test it out to see if it works. So the functions have been deployed, and now I'm back in my other browser to just test it out. So I'm just going to say something. I say hello, and then send, and let's just hope it works. Yay, so you can see that I've got the notification here. So, and this notification is being sent from the other instance that I have, which is in my Chrome running on localhost. So that's pretty much it. We've created an application that just sends notifications. As I've said here, it's simple and it's pretty useless, but at least we've created it. So I noticed one thing that I actually did wrong, which was here I put icons instead of icon, which is why in that notification you saw it wasn't working. But I've changed that now and everything should be working fine. But next what I want to do is just some final cleanup of our database, because as you can see here, we have all the notifications here, and we don't really want to keep them because, as I said, this is kind of a useless application and all it does is send a notification and that's it. So what we want to do is actually delete that. And secondly, what we want to also do is make sure that if any of the tokens fail, so let's say someone just manually goes to unsubscribe, so the token is not valid anymore, we also want to delete that from our database as well. So we're going to do those two things and hopefully it won't take so long. So after we send to device here, this actually returns a promise with the response, like the results, which also includes things like any errors that happen. So after here, what we just want to do is get the response. And I'm going to create a function that will clean the invalid tokens. And what I'm just going to do is pass the results in the response. So response.results. So let's create this function here. Just do that there. So here we have the results. But besides the results, what we also need is each of these tokens that have been passed. And we also want their key that they're saved by in the database, because that's how we're going to reference them. Even though we can perform a query to get it, it's just easier, seeing as we have that information here, to just pass that as well. So I'm going to create another array here called tokens with key. And in this loop, I'm going to pass a different object. So this is going to say token, which is going to be the same thing that we have here. And then we're also going to have key, which is just the key here. So now we have these two things. And instead of just passing the results, we're also going to pass this array here. So let's do that. And then here in our function, we're actually using it. So that's that. We've created the function. Let's actually do it. Wait a second. For some reason, I didn't add the word function, which is weird. But no wonder I was getting that error. Anyway, so we've created our function here. And now we want to actually do stuff with it. So first, let's just create an array of invalid tokens. So we're going to actually loop through all the results and see if it was invalid. And if it is, then we're going to push to this array, not just the token, but the action that we want to take to delete the token. So we can just at the end return promise.all and have everything. Results to for each results. And first, we actually want to check to see if there was an error, because this is just showing every single results, so everything we sent to. So if we don't have an error, result.error, then we can just return, because we don't really want to do anything here. But if we do, we want to check what the error actually is, and then we want to delete it, because there are different error messages, and we only want to delete it if it's one of the ones that says this token is no longer valid. So let's just look at the error code. So results.error.code. And there are two cases that we are worried about. So one says messaging, and I'm reading this off somewhere. Let's have a look. Invalid registration token. Or there's another case which says messaging, and let's see, it's registration token not registered. So for each of these cases, let's do a break. And just felt like doing a break as well. So I'm just writing it this way, just in case there's something else we want to do with a different type of error message. So in this case, this is where we want to push to the array the action that we want to take. So let's do invalid tokens dot push. And like I said, we're not just pushing the token itself, we're pushing the action to delete the token. So if we remember, we have admin.database.ref tokens, and then it's .child, and then we need the key, and that's why we pass this tokens with key. And since we're looping through this, we're looping through it in order, so we also have an index which we can access here. What we can do is access tokens with key.key, and then all we have to do is call .remove on that. Oops. So now at the end of this, we should have an array of all the tokens that we want to remove. So what we can do is return promise.all and invalid tokens. One other thing we can do that's kind of useful just for our own logging purposes is we can just say that in our console logs that there was an error before anything happens. So that way we can just double check to make sure things are great. So error with token, and then you can just say, same way I'm accessing here, but seeing as we also have the token itself, you can do .token. So yeah, we're going to return promise.all invalid tokens. So that should work fine. But let's also do the second thing I said that we should do, which is to delete the notification message that was just added there. So we can do that. It's going to be pretty simple in one line here. So seeing as that is returning like a promise, we can just do .then on that as well. So the same way we are removing the token here, I'm just going to copy this actually because it's pretty much what we want to do. But what we want to do is go to notifications, and then instead of this key, we want the notification key. So if we go here, we have a snapshot of the notification. So if I just go back and replace this, this should actually delete the notification there as well. So let's do one final push of our functions, and hopefully everything should work. So I was getting an error deploying the function, and I realized that I just wrote tokens with key here. I didn't write .push, so there's an actual error with the function. So let's try that one more time. Hopefully there are no other errors. So it's all deployed now. Let's try and test it out. So I'm gonna go back to this version, which is like the live version. Let me just refresh the page. And I'm just gonna send out a test notification. Actually, first of all, what I should do is go back here and delete the notifications that are here, just so we can make sure that there's gonna be no notifications there that last, seeing as we're deleting them. So let me just go back here and say this is a notification, and then send it. And yeah, I got the notification. You can see the image now that I fixed from before. So let's go back to our database, and yeah, we can see that it's been deleted. Like there's no notifications node here because in our function we've actually deleted it. So now we want to test what happens if one of the tokens actually fail. So what I'm going to do is just edit one of these so it's like becomes rubbish and becomes something that's not going to actually successfully send. Then I'm going to send another notification, go back again. So this should fail to one of the things, something like that. I should actually still get a notification because, yeah, as I thought, that token was the token for this actual user. So that's why I still see a notification. But if I go back, hopefully, yeah, as you can see, that that token was deleted because it didn't go, it was a false thing. So if I actually, sorry for all the switching. So if I actually go back here and refresh the page, it should say subscribe, yeah, because the user's token is no longer there because it was deleted. So let me just subscribe, yeah. So that is basically it. We've pretty much finished our application, but there's just one more thing I want to do, which is the Firebase database, like optimizations and security. So that's what we're about to do next.